Welcome to my podcast, At the Kitchen Table, where we guide, inspire, and connect. Today, my guest is Fenning with Sotheby's International Real Estate, and my friend, and a longtime family friend, and a coach, and a mentor, and somebody that I have known a long time and I value greatly, and I'm so grateful you're here. So thanks for coming, Les.
Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome.
And you always know I love you.
I love you too. So we started the podcast to visit with entrepreneurs about their journey, how they came into real estate, the things that they've done. So I want you just back me up a little bit. How did you get here? How did you get into the business? Where was your first step towards entrepreneurship as a young man? What did that look like?
So I've never had a real job. I'm 71, and I've been doing this since I was 22 years old. My journey has been interesting in the fact that I tried to buy my first home when I was 16 years old.
Did they let you buy houses? 16?
Of course not. But I started looking at houses and enjoying them and just finding different things about them. And anyway, I started out I was a warehouseman for a company, and I wanted to be a salesman in that company. Mm-hmm. And the head of HR told me I'd never be able to do that. So that afternoon, I enrolled in Jones Real Estate School. I went through that process, and at the same time, my best friend, a guy by the name of Joe Lilly, inherited a small company in Northwest Denver called Lilly Realty Company. Oh. And he said, get your license and come to work for me, and that's what I did. Mm-hmm. It was a unique opportunity. Joe had a degree in real estate and finance and was probably the best book person I've ever met in my life. He could quote stuff out of the manual on a regular basis. But he became concerned that I wouldn't be able to do it as the other person who told me I'd never be a salesman. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I understood over and above anything else was how to go find a customer.
Yeah.
So whether it was knocking on a door or meeting someone in the grocery store, or my mother, who was my first person who taught me about marketing, one day I went to have lunch with her and she started to cry and asked me, she said, Les, no one in our family's ever made a living in commissions, so how are you going to make a living? And I took a card out of my pocket and I put it on the kitchen table and I said, Mom, if you don't want me to come back and live with you, take this card and give it to somebody who can use it.
That's right. That's right.
And the first 8 houses I ever listed were because of my mother.
Yeah, she was out beating the bushes for you, right?
She taught me that it's not who's in front of you, it's who they know. Yeah. And the journey has been exceptional. That's right. God's given me great customers and great opportunities. But, in everything you do in life, you have to pay the price to be there. So it's a process of learning and understanding houses and people and families, and the things that make real estate people great are things that you learn over a period of time. Mm-hmm. And every day to me, this has been a challenge and an opportunity. And so the greatest human beings I've ever met in my life, I've sat in their kitchens.
Well, that's how the podcast came to be titled too, to be fair, which was, so much of the work that we do, we show up at people's kitchen table. You sit down with them, and at that kitchen table, there's this dynamic that is, it's magic. And it's this relationship you build with people in the most intimate setting in their life, doing the most expensive transaction of their life, which is rare and unique and special. And so to that end, the kitchen table becomes this gem in our business, at least. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, people who are running businesses, to engage with the client in an intimate way, to know the thing that they need you to help them solve is, it's really special. So I do want to ask you about, you've always kind of said to me, is there a problem? If there's a problem, how do you fix the problem? And so I think one of the things you've been good at is that you've been a problem solver and you're internally driven. So talk about drive and being solution oriented. What does that mean for you?
Well, the biggest drive in the real estate industry for me, Amanda, has been the love of the client, right? That's where it starts. I don't know how you can sit in a kitchen and find out everything that needs, from a person's perspective, to buy a house, and you at the end of it, you can't love them, right? Because it's it's a learning experience from the beginning to the end, and it's solving that problem. Mm-hmm. So for me, I don't focus in on problems, I focus in on solutions. And the solution is, if you're looking for a house, is not go out and find the worst house, but go out and find the best house. Yeah. If you've got a family and they have special needs, well, we have to figure out what those special needs are and how do we solve those problems. A long time ago, I sold a house, I helped build it, to a guy who is a paraplegic, and he couldn't get into his children's rooms to say goodnight to him with the wheelchair. So we created a circle in the hallway so that he could turn around and go into every room and say goodnight to his children.
Right.
So there's where some people look at it as a problem, I look at it as an opportunity. And I have always looked at opportunity as it's everywhere we look. If you are looking for an obstacle, you can find it.
Sure.
If you're looking for a solution, you can find it also.
That's right.
And, people live sometimes in the negativity where I've always lived in the positive.
Yeah, and that's interesting because you always flip to the positive. You always find the gain. You always find that the upside of things. I want to step you back just a little bit. So you grow up in Denver, and you are working for Lilly, and you end up at where after that? How did that progression of your career evolve? 14
years later, Joe decided that he wanted to move to a different location. He moved to Arizona. And so on a Saturday morning, we're having coffee, and he looked at me and he said, Les, you have a choice. You have 3 days to make a decision. You can buy the company, you can move to another company, or we can close the company and you can do something else for a living. So at that moment, I decided that I would come to ReMax. And of course, I met Chuck Oxner, and I became here. And within the first 6 months, I was number one in the office. And then within the first 3 years, I was number one in the company.
That's right. And how long were you here then at ReMax?
For over 25 years.
Long time.
Yeah.
And so when you're with a company a long time like that, looking back on that experience, the opportunities Chuck gave you, the evolution of the business in those years, what were some of the things that drove you to just be so successful at that time?
I'm someone who kind of measures where they are almost every day. And so one of the things I did is I started walking through the office, in our entire office, and kind of socializing with all. At that point, we started off with 25 agents, and then we went to 50, and then we went to a larger number. But my way was to socialize in the office and figure out what other people knew and take whatever they had to say and kind of work through it. Immediately, I knew that the competitiveness of me comparably to the average person in the office wasn't close.
Right. You were just so internally driven.
Yeah. Every day, I believe we give up, we get up with an opportunity to do whatever we want to do. And we're blessed many times to have things fall into place in order for us to become more successful. So I've been on a couple of bank boards. I've been involved in 30 subdivisions that I've either been building or marketing or been a part of. I have, been blessed to have closed over thousands of houses, to find individuals in each one of those properties that do different things for a living. And so you learn. And if you have an open mind, it's amazing how many things you learn.
What's interesting is one of the things that you did very early in the real estate business was form a team. So you were on the cutting edge of having a real estate team. How did you come to that decision? And what was I realize in some cases it becomes necessary, but I wonder, you were really ahead of yourself on that, or you were ahead of the industry on that.
Well, the good part about ReMax was, through conventions, through different opportunities, we meet different people. And so, there were some people out of Canada that I met who were talking about teams. There were people who were here in the metro area, and they were talking about teams. And so when you get to a volume of business, you have to create yourself over and over again. And one of the things that we did with creating the team, which was the best part of it, is we analyzed the transaction from the listing, the minute we get a phone call, through the listing, through going under contract, and then closing it. And I created a team of people that took it from the second that call came in through the closing and then into what we needed to do to help the people in the future.
But you were a big personality and you were doing a good job and you were the best in the business. How did you come to trust these other people? How did you learn to delegate? How did you learn to get those things off your plate and learn that you had to hire a better use someplace else? How did you come to acknowledge or own those things and get them off your plate?
So if you're really good at something, you understand that you're good at that, right? So there's for me, meeting people or taking a transaction and creating something new to make it better is there. But for me to do more volume, I had to find someone who could answer the phone, because if I'm out in the middle of the field building a subdivision, I won't answer the phone correctly. So I hired someone by the name of Sharon.
Yeah.
And Sharon was with me for almost 30 years.
I mean, it's one of your best traits, actually, is loyalty. And your relationship with the Sharons, who will come to be known as your wife, Sharon, and then subsequently your longtime assistant, Sharon, but your assistant, Sharon.
I'm a relationship person, right? So whether it's if I meet you somewhere, I want to know more about you, and I want to care about you, and I want to open up doors that are good for both of us.
Yeah.
And so if you meet someone and you take advantage of them or you just talk to them, that ends the relationship. But if you have someone who you can find out about their family, you can find out about them, you can help them change whatever direction they're going in, whether that's through advice, whether it's through giving them a contact, whether it's you start to build relationships. Mm-hmm. And those relationships are what make us better. Yeah. So Sharon, she was working here as an administrative person, and one day I said, I'd like to hire you, and so her and I talked about it, and I hired her.
Yeah.
And 25 years, 30 years later, she became, part of my family. Right. She was there when my kids were born. I mean, she's just an unbelievable person, and we created a relationship where the customers would tell her more than they would tell me.
Sure.
But, Amanda, systems overtake individuals. And no matter how good your personality is or no matter how good you are, if you don't build a system to promote that, it lessens what you can do. When I started here, I was probably doing, 20 transactions a year. When you get to over 100 transactions a year, you can't possibly do that by yourself.
That's right.
And so you need to build the people there. And what made my team unbelievable was the character of the main players. So agents come and go, but the staff stayed for a long period of time.
So one of the things is you build this team, you build these agents, you start to, coach them, so all of a sudden you're not just a salesperson anymore, but now you're having to be, an accountability coach, a mentor. You're having to grow people, recruit them, train them differently. And that's a different skill set. And so I am curious, I do feel like a lot of people who are good at the sales aspects of the business actually tend to not be very good at coaching and training and accountability. It's an operations job, effectively. And so, but you were successful at doing this, and you attracted people to come and work for you that, created this dynamic, very high producing team because of systems and because of Sharon and because of you and because of the laws of attraction, right? But what is that ability to wear multiple hats?
Well, one of the things I did discover is that I'm a terrible manager.
Yeah.
Right. It's not really what I'm good at.
But Sharon
was. If there's a problem.
But Sharon was a good manager.
Yes. She was able to understand the personalities of all of the people.
Yeah.
And she was able to help them grow, which helped me grow.
That's right.
But someone has to sign the checks. and someone has to be responsible for the entire thing. And so, but for me, I'm not a great manager. I'm someone who, if there's a problem, I put both feet in the water and let's go. Let's fix it.
Where do you think the evolution of real estate teams goes moving forward? Like knowing what you know and the businesses that you've built and run, where do you think team structures land?
In the real estate business, it is about personality. Mm-hmm. It is about structure. It is about different people's being able to do different types of things. So, what's worked over the last, in my lifetime of real estate, is different clients, different people have different kinds of clients. And at the end of the day, there are a lot of great realtors. But there are realtors who want to do 2 or 3 deals a year, and there are realtors who want to do hundreds of deals per year.
Yeah.
I think that technology is changed everything, right? Yeah. And the fact that it will continue to change everything. And different types of brokerages are personalities of brokerages, I should say, are different.
Right.
And I think that we'll see smaller amounts of teams because you will have less things that people need in order to support them.
Right.
If you're able to use it. And I think that's straight across the board with everything. Technology is going to help us grow in ways that shrink costs, shrink dependability, shrink different things. But then it creates a whole different problem of, there's people who will embrace technology and people who won't.
Right.
And so the industry, the real estate industry, is more driven today than it's ever been driven by the consumer. Mm-hmm. They have more information. When I started, we had all the information, and it was in a big book, and we had the secrets. Mm-hmm. Today, you have videos of properties, and people get to choose and pick and decide where they want to go. They need to, they're understanding that an agent has different ways of compensation, right? And so they're becoming more and more aware, and so they're going to drive the industry.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So if you're moving forward in the real estate industry, you need to understand that, and you need to know that they need your help in different ways. Mm-hmm. So you have to take the technology and the information and provide it to them at a higher level.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that answered your question.
Well, it does, but well, I understand the evolution of the team, and I think that's where you're going, and I think that's true. I think the technology is going to change the business, and I think even now we sit on this precipice of AI and the way that changes real estate, and I think there are opportunities, big opportunities for AI in real estate, and I think that if you are listening to this and you don't want to get on board with that, I think you will be left behind. I think that you have to agree to move in the direction of technology because I just think that's the way that the world is going.
Well, technology will allow you to help your customer if you listen to your customer. I mean, when I got into the industry, sure, you have to understand that I would have people get this book and they would mark up houses that they wanted to see and we'd go look at them, right? And even when I had a team or I was selling real estate on a regular basis, we had people properties and we go look at them.
Yeah.
Well, I think today we can figure out what those houses look like and if they really meet the needs of our clients.
But right, showing fewer houses.
Yeah, we have to listen to what our clients are looking for. Mm-hmm. We have to understand that houses are priced accordingly based upon condition, location, different things that are there, and all of that can be shown to the consumer as we're sitting in the office, right?
And AI can listen to them too, actually sometimes more attentively than we can.
Absolutely.
So, you can even turn these devices on while you're in the consult with the client and it'll come away with a summary of what they want. And, it may hear it differently than what you heard, but this interesting technology piece to say, like, this is how I heard the meeting and this is how Amanda heard the meeting. And then I can reflect on some of those notes and say, oh gosh, well, they did say 3 times. They want a ranch, they want a ranch, they want a ranch, or whatever. But I do want to step you through the next phase, which is you go to live Sotheby's, mm-hmm, which was a very hard move for you. Talk about the struggles of making that move and what that meant for your relationship with Chuck, maybe specifically, and ReMax, and then what kind of doors opened up for you when you went there.
I've had an interesting journey. From the time I was at Lilly Realty Company, through coming to ReMax, and being at ReMax over a long period of time, I've been recruited by almost every major real estate brokerage that's ever been around.
Right.
Somebody always wanted to go to lunch, always wanted to talk, and the more successful you become, the more that they want you to look in their direction.
Sure.
I've never been recruited by Sotheby's. It was a decision. I was looking for more things that Sotheby's has to offer.
Like what?
The ability, the photos that we do, the way we market properties internationally and nationally and locally is different. Mm-hmm. Those doors are very creative and very open, and it's done in a way that I have not seen any other brokerage do it. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you have the support that you have there. All of those things are what I was looking for at that moment. And I was also looking not to do a team anymore.
Right.
I wanted to go do things that are there. Sometimes, let me put it this way. In my life, when one door seemed to close, the next door opened.
Right.
And it increased in everything that I could ever imagine. Yeah. You know, when I came to ReMax, I was at the very first awards banquet, and there were 34,000 agents, and I was in a room with all of these agents, and I were looking at the awards that were being presented and the people who were at the very top at that moment. Internally, the only thing I said to myself is someday I'll stand on that stage all by myself, and I'll do more than all of these people.
Right, that was your internal drive, and you did accomplish that, didn't you? You did make it to the very top.
Yeah,
and so there's this.
Not that matters.
I know, but there's an acknowledgement that sometimes when you're at the top, how do you go open a new door?
Life has many obstacles. Nothing's free, and so I've always looked at it that, again, it's the opportunity. I was feeling that I was limited here in what I wanted to do, and so I made a change.
Right.
I mean, it's not that ReMax was not. And Chuck, I'll never be able to say thank you enough,
right,
because I always felt that it was an opportunity, and it was the greatest experience I could ever have in my life. I learned tons of things from everybody who was here. Yeah. I appreciated all the relationships that we had. But there was something new in my career that I needed to go find out.
Right.
And that's where I'm headed.
Well, it's so interesting. The thing you don't know, you don't know.
That's kind of, when I coach people, I talk about a couple different things, right? First of all, we all live in a world, and that world becomes very small. It's really good. You and I have talked about this a little bit, right? The box. You're in a place where it's very convenient and it's very easy, and it's whatever it is that's happening in your world is right there, and it's comfortable.
Yes.
My growth is because I want to get out of that world, and I want to get into the universe, and I want to see what else is available out there. Right. So if you've traveled, you can be in one part of the United States and everything looks one way. You go to the other part of the United States, it looks just totally different.
Yes.
And I try to, for me, my growth has been, I'm not very comfortable in staying in the same place forever. I'm comfortable in doing the same thing for 50 years, but I wanted to see what other opportunities were there.
How do you battle that discontentment but to have a content life? Because I feel that I'm wired this way too, that there's this discontentment to do the next thing, to grow, to change, or to evolve, or whatever that next thing is, and yet still live a contented life, which I'll go there because you are living a contented life. You have a lovely family, which you came late to, right? You were very successful early in your years. You came late to starting a family. So talk about Sharon and Jenna and Jonathan and the kids.
Well, I kind of forgot to get married till I was 43. Forgot to have a baby till I was 47.
Right.
And it's been the greatest gift that God has ever given me.
Yes.
I have a daughter, Jenna, and a son, Jonathan, and they're the best part of me. Yes. I have a wife who's a spectacular woman. She's way beyond anything I could ever imagine, and I've been blessed way beyond there.
You came to a place of humility too. About 42.
Well, I'm a driver and hopefully a leader. And my pants were on fire. I couldn't wait to get to the next obstacle so I could fix it and move on and
Right.
do incredible things, right? If you take I'm watching Dave Lininger, and I'm seeing him and the things that he did with desire and effort and putting things together. And to me, that was the challenge. Okay, if you see other people do things, what can you do? All right, and my pants were on fire. I couldn't wait to get to the next real estate transaction. I came in here one day, and Trish Auctioneer, it was a weekend, it was a Monday, and she came to me and she said, well, Les, how was your weekend? I said, I had a great weekend. She goes, well, what happened to make it great? I said, I sold 8 houses in one weekend. Woo! She was excited, right? But
I was talking about Sharon. I want to know, I knew you were driving. How
But
did you settle down?
Well, the truth is, I was dating lots of different kinds of people. Mm-hmm. But one night I sat down and wrote a list of what I wanted in a woman, and 6 weeks later she showed up.
Right. That was intention. That's it. That's the art of intention.
And she at first said, well, Les, you look like a playboy, and then asked, why would I want to date you? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we figured it out. And we grew together, and, her goal was to have children. And I said, well, if God wants us to do that, then we will. And that's, we got pregnant with Jonathan, and, then we had Jenna, and, we've had an unbelievable life together. I have a great family. Yeah. So, all of that rounds you to making you a better person, and if I'd have been a dad earlier, I'm not sure I would have been as good a dad. That's, I was pretty driven, and my idea in the world is to get up at 6 in the morning and work till 10 o'clock at night. And if you have a family, sometimes that doesn't work as well. But it's who I am.
I'm curious. Talk about that time in your life where things got really tight, rough, hard, or different, and how that resilience. How did you come through that?
Well, in the 2000s, the early 2000s. I had created an opportunity, and we were building houses and developing ground. And, in 2006, 2008, the market just totally dropped out. Yeah. So no matter how good you were, what you find out is that, certain market conditions outweigh everything that you can do. And no matter how good you are, it doesn't work. And so we had a failure, and we came through it at the best we could. I found out that certain people are with you and certain people aren't, and you got to go out and fix whatever it is. And when you come out of it, you have what you have. Mm-hmm. And so we failed at a huge level, but we came out of it and worked through it. It just, you don't have a choice in life. Whatever happens to you is you get to pick and choose how you accept it or not accept it, and how you change it, or how you do whatever you're going to do, right? So, with my children, I've said to them for a lifetime, is there's things we can change and things that we can't. You can never change the past. It's already happened. Mm-hmm. It's over. So you can dwell on it. You can figure out if it's going to help you or hurt you. You can do whatever. But the thing you can do is change the present. If you're not doing things the way you want to, you can figure out ways to change that. You can get educated. You can take a class. You can go talk to a mentor. You can do a million things that allow you to change what that's happening at that moment. That change does change the future and where you're going.
Right.
And for me, I've always looked at it as no matter how bad it is, it can't be worse than it was yesterday. Okay, I can't change that. But today, I can change it. I can fix it. I can go talk to somebody. I can think about how I perform myself.
Right.
And, if we take responsibility for the things that have happened in the past, okay, you did it. It wasn't something that you didn't have that just happened to you. Shit happens. Okay, well, let's move forward and put it into the next category and let's make it better.
Talk to me about the cool listings that you've got going right now, some of the big things that you're doing, just to give some acknowledgement to, you know, your sort of line about being a poor boy from North Denver, which was always sort of a classic line from you, which I love, because it's how, you know, you can, when you start somewhere and then you went to Lilly, then you come to ReMax, you go to live Sotheby's, and now that you're there, you're doing this handful of these really big transactions, or really cool transactions, maybe more than the dollars. That's not even so much the part as the opportunity to sell, you know, an airplane hangar or a ski resort.
In this industry, we never know who we're going to meet.
That's right.
So sometimes that's good and sometimes it's bad. In my case, it's always been an exceptional honor to be around the people I've been around. Mm-hmm. I have a small, privately owned airport for sale. It came through a client of mine, which I've sold 4 or 5 houses for over the years, but she happened to have an ex-husband who was involved in it, and they needed to make something happen. So it's here in Colorado. It's a small little airport, and we have it for sale. Of course, it's a challenge.
Yeah, not many people looking to buy an airport.
You know, we've had people all over the United States look at it, but it's got its own little challenges, sure. and it's fascinating. You know, we have a old ski resort that is for sale, and I've got a stone quarry for sale, and we've got a property that's a couple of lakes and is possibly being able to have multifamily on. So it's just different types of transactions, bigger, different, more complex, but rewarding in a different way, right? Yeah. Well, I think that real estate changes. You know, when you're selling the first house I sold was $16,500. And the last house you'll sell will be $16,500,000. Yeah, whatever. Well, I tell people that value is a perception, not a reality, all right? So that same house sold just for the lot for $700,000. Right. 40, 50 years later, right? The house didn't change. It's just the market changed. You know, it's how we look at things. And marketing a $5 million house is different than marketing a $200,000 house. But in reality, the buyers, that $200,000 house, the buyers are just as important as the people who are buying the $5 million house, right? Sure. Each of them have needs and they want to have a home, and, you know, I love those people. The people who are buying the $5 million house, they have needs also. They just are in a different place in life, and we have to make sure it's the right house for them. You know, I've said it for years, is let's not go buy the haystack, let's go buy the needle in the haystack. Let's go buy the best house. And all the clients that I have over a long time that's what they know. Whether it's having to look at one house or 50, it doesn't matter to me. Let's find the best one, the one that's for you. I was in this office when we talked about buying one computer, which was, I don't know, $5,000, and it was split between 25 people. And everybody's arguing whether they ought to buy the computer or not buying the computer. That's how old I am, right? Well, that day I didn't even know how to turn it on. I went out and bought 2, right? Yeah, you were like, we're going to do this. Yeah, well, the world's changing. It's there. And we can either embrace the change or we can walk away from it. And, you know, I've been blessed in having an open mind and an open spirit and finding the greatest person. If I can't turn on a computer, I can hire someone who can. That's right. If I can't do something as well as someone else, then let's find that person and let's have them help us, right? Let's be better. It's life, right? I can take people to a different place. And the vision that I have and my new part of my life is how do I help other people? What's the most important part of that? It's changing careers. It's changing lives. Well, with that, I'd like to thank you for coming. And this was great, and you're a legend, and you're a friend and a great guy, and I thank you for
giving me a little piece of you and a little piece of your time so that we can really reflect back on this and remember
Thank you
these
for
years.
the opportunity.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. All right.
Yeah,
Thanks,
are.
Les.
Bye.